Well, this is a true story. In 1964, when I was 9 years old, my parents decided to send me to summer camp. 2 weeks. I'd never been away from home more than just a few nights at my grandparents' house, and so this is a big deal. And they dropped me off in Chattanooga at a school up there that had a camp in the summer. So they dropped me off, and I swear I could hear them laughing as they drove out through the parking lot. I think getting rid of me was a big deal, give them a chance to get acquainted again. But at that time, the counselors were probably 17 years old, and because I was so young, I thought, well, they're adults, and I'll obey them, and our relationship was pretty much set in stone. By the time my parents got out of the driveway, these counselors began what could only be referred to as a hazing ritual. And they told us that the last Saturday of the 2-week camping adventure we were on, we would take a field trip, in a bus to Clingman's Dome. It's up in a park up in Tennessee. And we were going to hike up to Clingman's Dome, and we could see 7 states and all this kind of stuff they were telling us. So we were excited about that, but part of the deal is that there's bears in the area. So we have to start your bear training. So they told us the way that we would train for a possible bear encounter was we would have to get on the ground anytime they said bear and pretend like we were dead. So, okay, well, we pretty much didn't believe that was a real thing, but we complied. So within just a few minutes of my parents leaving, they started saying bear and bear attack and all this kind of crap, and we had to get on the ground. So we'd look over at each other, and kind of wink and everything like, this isn't real, but we'll go with it. So 2 weeks later, after canoeing, archery, getting an award for making my bed, all that kind of crap, we ended up getting on this Bluebird bus and traveling for hours up into the Smoky Mountains to Clingman's Dome. Of course, as soon as we got off the bus, getting ready for the climb up to the dome, it was bear, and we had to get on the ground and the gravel and whatnot. So humiliation continued. We climbed this thing, and Clingman's Dome now is like a paved cart path, but back then it was, as I recall, like a 45-degree climb up a dry creek bed full of rocks and bramble and just a nasty thing. We climbed up there, and it was quite a climb. Got up to the top, and it's basically a fire tower up there, and somehow or another they'd gotten our lunch up there, and we had sandwiches and bug juice, and we climbed up to the top of the tower where they claimed we could see 7 states, and we could hardly see the ridge line over there about a mile, so I'm pretty sure that wasn't true. So we got down, and they kind of got us all together and said, we're gonna meet in an hour down at the bus to go back to Chattanooga. So be careful, there's bears, and so everybody had to hit the ground one more time, and okay, we'll do it. So we started down the trail, pretty steep, dusty, summertime. Start running, and I realized there was 2 kids there ahead of me. I'm running hard after them, trying to catch them. And there was 1 kid behind me, and I ran as hard as I could. Realized that the 2 kids ahead of me had pulled away. I looked back, and the kid behind me had dropped back. So I'm kind of by myself. And I don't know why, but I decided I would have a little fun, and I stepped off the trail and sort of hid, waiting on the next kid, that single lone wolf, to come running down the hill behind me. And I grabbed a hold of a little pine sapling and waited for him. And about the time he got even with me, he's running as hard as he could trying to catch me, I just shook that tree like this. Made kind of a growling noise, and the little boy kept running, but his legs stopped running. That's the best way to describe it. And he went sailing, kind of head first down that rocky creek bed. Eventually, he hit the ground, started tumbling, dust flying, rocks, gravel. He came to a stop, kind of on his sitting down and rocking and moaning, and his eyes closed in a cloud of dust, and had kind of contusions and abrasions, a few little places like that. I think a couple of baby teeth were knocked back. But anyway, I ran over to him. About the time he quit tumbling, I was there, hovered over him and realizing the implications of what I had just done. It was going to be horrible. I was going to, everybody was going to blame me and what were you thinking kind of a deal. So I was already pretty upset about it. And about that time, one of the counselors and another kid came running over the crest of the hill there and saw what had happened. And the counselor stopped and he said, "What happened?" I took a deep breath like that, and I was going to say, well, I scared him, blah, blah, blah. But before I could even say anything, that little kid on the ground said, "A bear attacked me." Well, I thought for a second, why don't we just wait and see how this shakes out before I say anything. So I kind of took a step back. And the counselor came over there and hovered over him, and he started yelling up and down the trail, "Class 5, bear alert, Class 5, bear alert, Class 5, bear alert," up and down the trail. I'm just watching. Well, that must have been some sort of a secret thing. I don't know what kind of message that was, but within 30 minutes, they had all of the campers rounded up on the bus, started down the mountain. I'm in row 12, leaned up against the glass, about as quiet as I could possibly be, watching all this unfold. Up there on row 1 was the little kid that had been bear attacked. The counselor's hovering over him, and everything, and everybody's kind of quiet and in shock about what's just happened. And one of the counselors that was over him raised up and looked down the aisle, and everybody's looking at him to see what he's going to say, and he said, "See, you little pricks, we told you there was bears up here." Like that. And man, I think I got quieter, just leaned up against that glass. We started down the mountain, pretty twisty, and passed two what I would refer to as rat patrol jeeps coming up the mountain. They've got these park rangers with tranquilizer guns loaded, ready to shoot the first bear they see up there, because the darn things, once they get a taste of human blood, you can't fix them. Or, maybe they're going to helicopter it to the Canadian Rockies or something, but I doubt it. So we're pretty freaked out about it. We quiet all the way back to Chattanooga. That was on Saturday. Sunday, my parents came to get me, last day of camp, and I'd won these awards, and they're so proud and everything. And then my mother pulls me aside, and she says, "Were you involved in that bear attack? We've heard about it." I said, "Well, kind of. I was kind of in that area, like that." So for the next roughly 35 years, I never mentioned it again to any living creature. And finally, one day, something came up. I don't remember what triggered it, but my two sons were talking, and we were talking, and I thought, well, it's been long enough. The statute of limitations has probably run out. Nobody will remember me and what I did. So I told that story, and my son just howled, they thought it was the funniest thing. And they both agreed that kid that had been bear attacked had probably grown into a, sort of a, I don't know, prick lawyer down in Atlanta or something like that. And he's probably telling his wife right now, "Don't talk to me like that, honey. I was attacked by a bear when I was 9 years old. You can't talk to me like that." That's probably his claim to fame, and maybe he's done great, and I hope so. But I've told this story one time to some coworkers, and they were like, "There's no such thing as a Class 5 barrel alert. That's a bunch of nonsense. Well, one of them got on his phone and Googled it, and next thing you know, he's pulled it up, and turns out there is such a thing as a Class 5 barrel alert. And from 1964, I guess it's the standard that still applies, but it said a Class 5 barrel alert is mauling and chewing. Now, can you imagine that? That camp counselor was so aware that he was able to diagnose the situation and correctly report it up and down the mountainside. What next? Well, that's a good one, but I've got a few more stories coming.